Good morning, everybody, and welcome to July's Beyond the Buzz, a monthly webinar hosted by the Northern Plains UAS Test Site. And we're joined here today with Sadie Rudolph, who's from Enderlin, North Dakota, which just had a tornado go through her childhood hometown. And we have her here to kind of explain the effects it had on her community. We also have Hunter Hegel with us today, one of the Northern Plains U.S. test sites UAS operations leads, who responded to Enderlin's request for help with UASs. And so we're just here to talk about the effects that the tornado had and how drones were used to help uh, connect missing items back to um, back to people who were devastated by the tornado. Again, thank you, Sadie and Hunter, for joining us today. And Sadie, we're gonna start with you. Just can you tell us a little bit about the events of that weekend and kind of how you have that personal side, that personal story about that tornado hitting your childhood hometown?
Yeah, absolutely. So, June 20th was the day that we knew bad weather was coming, and I live in West Fargo now, and um, I love thunderstorms. So when it's a good radar day, I'm going to turn the local news on and watch our local meteorologists tell us what's going on. And we see this a lot in the summertime in North Dakota, and you just don't ever think it's really gonna touch that close to home. And I was watching, it was late at night, and I just remember the meteorologist saying, Enderlin, you are in severe danger and take cover now. And um, it hit my heart pretty good because my parents still live there and my family lives there. Um, and so then I kind of waited it out and the weather had kind of passed. And so I went to bed. But then I woke up on Saturday morning and I just had this uneasy feeling and turned on the news and Cass County Sheriff Jesse Johnner was doing a press conference with the Enderlin Fire Chief. And they showed the different areas affected. And they were unrecognizable to me because the tornado snapped the trees that were very well established on especially my neighbor's yard. I couldn't recognize it because all of the buildings were completely blown away and then they showed my childhood home, and my dad and my grandfather had built that house with their bare hands. And I think the intention was in a severe weather case to protect it, to protect the family. And it was an earth home, so it was built into the home. And for years and years and years, I always remember people saying, "Oh, you live in the house on the that's built into the side of the hill." And I was like, "Yep." And then I'd be really proud, and I'd tell everyone how my dad made it, and then to see the roof ripped off of it was really heartbreaking. And then a little bit later, my dad sold it about 5 years ago, and the family who live in that house or live on that property now credited him with saving their lives because they went into the bathroom and Tyler Pfaff is who lives there now. He said that he could tell that they were getting hit and just felt that immense pressure in his ears. And so that's really why it is so close to home to me.
Mhm. And what made you think of drones when you put out that call? What made you think of that and get that type of help?
Well, really, it came from a conversation with my aunt the following Monday. I was visiting with her, and I had put a social media post out because a lot of Enderlin was, just reeling, and the tornado didn't actually hit the town. It hit the country, and it really affected farms and people who lived close to me, and they were missing a lot of their things. And so my aunt, I said, what can people do to help? Like, I have so many people reaching out to me asking how they can help. And she's like, really, what we need is people to walk fields and then drones. She's like, we're looking for stuff. We need drones. And so that's really when I was like, well, I know quite a few people who are amateur drone pilots, for their farms or um, photography. And so I was like, I'm just going to throw this out there and see what happens.
Nice. And then now moving over to Hunter. Um, what was the test site's response, once the test site heard about um, this call for action for all these volunteers to help with drones? Kind of, can you talk about our actions and how we responded?
Yeah, certainly. So what Sadie alluded to was that she put out that social media post, and we were fortunate enough to see that on mid-afternoon, late afternoon on the 23rd. So we got together with our team. Luckily, that was kind of a slow operations week on our end. So we worked into the night, tried to get all of our things, all of our drones, batteries charged up, make sure that our mobilization efforts would have been useful. Um, and so then we packed everything up, and we had a team of about four take off at 6 a.m. from Grand Forks, mobilized out to Enderlin, where we were hopefully able to assist with those cleanup efforts, and then trying to identify, you know, the damage assessment, a bird's eye view of what was going on in and around Enderlin, and trying to be as useful as possible given the situation.
When you got there, what were some of the tasks that we were given? What were we looking for?
Yeah,
Well,
so
with that bird's eye view.
yep. Most importantly, there was a list of missing items that the citizens of Elderland and/or the surrounding community had lost during the storm. So our main goal was to try to locate those items, given that bird's eye view, see if we can find anything, if they were in a creek, in those shelter belts, anything of that nature. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find any of the like missing trailers, anything like that. They were either just completely destroyed or well out of our scope where we were looking. So that was unfortunate there. But with the walking to clean up the fields, just because we had that bird's eye view, it's hard to see over the horizon. And some of those crops in those fields were about, I'd say, ankle to knee high. So seeing that debris just standing right at the horizon is not going to be able to be helpful for people on the ground. So getting that drone up, flying that field quite quickly, and then relaying that information and those location of the debris to the people on the ground walking and in their side by sides to come clean it up in a quick response.
That's great. Sadie, back over to you. After all the volunteers, all the drone pilots that volunteered, because we weren't the only ones that responded. I believe there was about 10 different drone pilots, maybe a few more. And thank you to those people who volunteered. I think it was a great thing for them to do. What was the community's reaction to all these volunteers that came out to help?
I think they were overwhelmed and so grateful. Um, my post that I shared on social media was shared over 190 times. And we had people reaching out from Christine who wanted to help, like, pretty far out. And I know that other communities were affected as well. And so I think that when I said like the Northern Plains UAS test site wants to come and help, they were humbled and surprised and just so grateful because I don't think that that's something that people think of when right away. I think it's still a very new technology that, people have historically kind of been afraid of. But early in my career, I worked with the UAS summit that's always held in Grand Forks, and um, really seeing the effect that drones can help in disasters or crisis situations really was kind of just, this is going to be super helpful if we can get people to help look for these items. At least it'll give them some peace of mind that they tried to recover things. Um, a high school classmate of mine, her farm was declared a 100 or a total loss, and they lost vehicles and trailers and things like that. And she said that having the aerial search and the drone footage really helped in their insurance claim process. That sped things up a little bit because it's there and it shows like the damage, and there's no question it's clear evidence. So I think it helped in more ways than people realized, and will continue to help. The response was amazing, even from the amateur pilots and things. I think they learned a lot from your team, Hunter, and it was fun to be able to work together.
And back to you, Hunter. What kind of I mean, more of on a personal side for you, Hunter, kind of what made you just say, raise your hand and say, I'm gonna volunteer and do this?
Yep. I would say from, one being North Dakotan through and through, trying to be able to help the community in any way that we can. What you alluded to, we had 10 or 11 pilots scattered from, I'm in Fargo right now, so we made the trip from Fargo, but team from Grand Forks, we had a team from Bismarck. Everybody wants to come in and do their fair share to try to help because it can be Enderlin, a couple weeks ago, it could be Fargo or anywhere else in the cities, anywhere else in North Dakota City tomorrow. So making sure that, as a community aspect, that we all stand with each other and are able to help each other in times of need. So that's what really made me try to get up and get out there and see the damage firsthand. Because we can read about it, we can see pictures on it, but until you actually go to the scene and see the devastation, you really aren't going to understand the full gravity of those effects.
Thanks, Hunter. And then also on that note, Hunter, with the future role of technology, how do we think that um, e- like the new regulations for 108 or kind of more BV laws, how is that going to help, in these search efforts when as of right now, we could only fly in 107 rules, but how is the BV loss function going to help for hopefully not too many future devastations, but for similar events like these?
Yeah, so fully unlocking BVLOS is going to be critical for these, first responder type efforts and disaster response relief efforts. Just because we're so hampered by the current, we have to stay within the visual line of sight of said drone. That equates us to about a mile and a half to 2 miles, depending on your eyesight. So that's really going to help when we have to damage assess the long tornado path. Not sure on the total distance of the path, but it was quite longer than 2 miles. So being able to fly up and down, doing those assessments beyond visual line of sight will only speed up the recovery efforts.
Mhm. Um, Yeah. Um, and then just Sadie, like again, just anything anything more that you can relay, like just in response or just with the immaculate or just with the drone response and that anything else that you can really say of how effective this was.
Yeah, I think that, Hunter said they, maybe didn't find the things that they were looking for, but I think people needed to see what that looked like. I have heard a couple different stories about people finding, letters 90 miles away. So, and then I think the sheer force of the tornado was stronger than what we've seen. I heard 160-mile-per-hour winds reported. And so while you maybe didn't find things, like you said, they may have been destroyed. They may, be in millions of little pieces all over the area. And um, I know that a friend of mine who has a farm a few miles away from where my childhood home is, he's found pictures from our neighbor's residence. And so um, I think that it still gives people a good understanding of what the damage is. So I think whether, it's a tornado in the summer or a blizzard in the winter, like there are so many different ways that this technology can help. And I'd also, talk about how North Dakota is a leader in this. Like we're a test site, and that means that, we're leading the way in this industry. And I think that's something we should be proud of as well.
Well, thank you very much on that. Yeah, and then I think I think we covered quite a bit and how drones have been very effective in a disaster cleanup. Is there any questions from those of you who are joining us online or in the room that would be if they would like to have a question or anything like that about the response and the way we used our drones or just the effects from the people from Enderlin? Any questions? Feel free to throw them into the chat.
I heard a little bit too about, that the recovery day and the way that it was organized. And I wasn't able to be there that day, but um, it was my understanding that they kind of assigned pilots to different fields and then sent different teams out to different fields. And Hunter, I'd be curious to see like what your thoughts were about the organization and if that was an effective method.
Yeah, I would. So we really didn't know how many drone pilots were going to show up beside or outside of our four that we had from the test site. When we got there at about 8 o'clock, there were, breaking everybody into groups. There were about 9 groups that were formed to walk in those 9 different fields, and luckily we had those 10 pilots. So we actually had a little bit extra to spare, so we could put 2 pilots into one group just to speed up that process. So I would say for the short for about 24 hours when you put that call out for action, over 150 people showed up to walk those fields, and then we had those 10 or 11 drone pilots that were able to go with each group. So each group had a UAS pilot to hopefully get that better bird's eye view on there and assess the damage from the sky. So I think that was very critical on that. I'm glad each group was able to have a drone to help sort of assess what was going on in that situation. And then for the communication aspect of it, all the drone pilots got together, made sure that we were in talk with the main coordinator as well, making sure that we were backing up each other throughout the process and coordinating if and when we were flying, just to make sure we didn't create a collision hazard or anything like that.
Okay. Any other questions?
I kind of was thinking about that too, the number of people who show up. And Enderlin's a little over 800 people on a good day. So having 150 volunteers show up to help was huge for them. And I think there will be more days and more cleanup efforts as we get through. I think a lot of people weren't able to touch their property or start really cleaning up because they have to leave things sit as um, until their insurance adjusters can get there. But uh, I'd also think that, I think about this is a moment in history for this town, and having that documentation and that video is super important. Like I had never seen the impact of a tornado that close up, and what it does to the trees and the fields and its path. It looks like things were burned, and there was almost like a forest fire that went through, and the devastation is very, very literal when you think of it that way. And so, while it's not a happy memory, I still believe that this is a moment in history that that town will need to have. And so I think when you think of the footage, that is another impact.
No, that's great. See, um, we got a chat from Catherine who's watching us online, just saying um, thanks for sharing your story, and it was great to hear about all the volunteers who showed up. So, um, seeing that there's really no questions, I would just like to thank you, Sadie, for joining us. So kind of a quick turnaround here this morning, and Hunter, thank you for joining us this morning for telling us about the impact that the drones had and that those on the boots on the ground view. And then and just kind of showing how technology and our communities can come together and work together in times of need. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in to Beyond the Buzz, and we'll see you guys in August on our next Beyond the Buzz. So thanks again, Sadie and Hunter, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.